Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Sim Mentors podcast. My name is Matt Graves. My co-host each week is Kyle Grandell. What's up, Kyle?
Hey Matt, how you doing? Good job with that intro.
I screw it up every week. Anything that's consistent is my screw-ups.
But your scripts are getting better. I think it's really starting to take fruition. At least now the listeners know what to expect. So
they know what they're listening to, and they hear me stumbling over common words.
No, but all good, man. It's nice up here. I mean, up in the northern land, we're starting to get leaves changing colors. Got the reds and the oranges coming in. It's kind of nice. Temperatures are like 70s. Oh, perfect there. But yeah, that, and then on me, company wise, we got some exciting stuff happening. I'm kind of getting ready to wrap up on a site and start getting off sites more often. So it's going to be an interesting phase for Dell management. And then,
what does that look like for you?
Man, I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah, I mean, mainly remote, but just focusing on BD efforts. Getting people on sites instead of me. So
working on the business, not in the business.
That's what they say you're supposed to do. So we're going to start trying that one out finally after 8 years.
Well, you're building up a team, so you get a team that you can trust to go to the job sites.
Oh, that's the hard part, man. Is finding the right people, and then of course being able to keep the right people. Haven't had too much issue with that. Anything that's in our control, at least. But it's just hard to find people, ones that are fitting the bill.
Especially, I mean, the first company I worked for, we worked coast to coast, so we didn't have two projects in the same city, right? So your crews traveled; they were road warriors. We worked out of our office. Our corporate office, but then you travel job sites all the time. And the longer projects, we'd go hire a local project manager to be on site. But that's a hard job whenever you're chasing the work around the country, right? It's hard to keep people that want to be road warriors like that.
Well, no, and especially nowadays too. I mean, as people are seeing, the industry's changing, and not just with necessarily like the workforce shortages and stuff, but just in the way the industry operates. I mean, there's more people working remotely now. The younger generations that are coming in, they don't want to travel as much. They're more interested in having the work-life balance, which is a great thing. And that's not a negative thing in my mind, but it does change the way that companies have to approach their projects.
This has been a topic that's been floating around in my head, and I've talked to a few people about it, just kind of theoretically, and I've talked to a couple people that are trying to put it in practice. But have you seen the ability for people to manage construction projects fully remotely? I mean, obviously, your superintendent can't be remote, right? Because they got to be boots on the ground type of stuff. But there's a lot of activities, managing submittals, managing RFIs. There's a lot of in construction management, there's so much, quote, administrative, busy work, computer work that you could almost do anywhere or even offshore to some degree. Have you seen that actually be successful? Or what's your thoughts behind that if you haven't?
Well, I'm going to say that I have seen that attempted many, many times. And where I've seen it the most successful, basically the owner, the company that's, that owns the project site, I mean, they got to have the involvement then to fill in the gaps, whether it's the engineering team that's making trips to the site frequently, or it's somebody who's not necessarily part of the construction management team. There's got to be somebody there to be able to kind of fill in those gaps, because there's things that come up. You have to be there physically in person to be able to walk through, look at, talk about. So, I mean, from my perspective, I haven't seen, like, for example, good or really, really good implementations of technology to supplement a body in the field. I'm sorry, to replace a body in the field. But as far as like supplementation, doing things like 360 images or even some VR stuff, I mean, yeah, it's certainly a great tool to supplement, but I haven't seen any good replacements for that yet. How about you?
There's some people, actually, one guy I've got to know over the last few months. He's actually an Indian guy he runs a business here in the United States, but he has a team offshore in India that they do, project management services, project engineering services, say, for instance. They do quantity takeoff, obviously, because everybody has a quantity takeoff service, but they also do project engineering, where obviously if they have people at a computer in India, they're not going to make it to your job site. They're not doing anything that needs to be job site specific, but so maybe not like an owner's rep project manager, But, say a general contractor and your subcontractors, project management team, you've got to wear like 12 hats, right? You got to do contracting, you got to do RFI writing, submittal writing, drawing, upload, like managing Procore, right? There's all these things that you got to do as a project management staff, whether it be the PM, PE, assistant PM, however you chop it up. That a lot of it, there's a lot of administrative kind of virtual assistant type of stuff you can almost outsource, I think. I haven't used their service at all, but I'm seeing how it could work. Or even if you're not like saying going through like an offshore company right there, right? But even like executive level project managers, there's stuff that they could do remotely, right? With their skill set. They don't, reading and writing contracts. You don't have to be on the job site for that, but that's a project management activity. Building out CPM schedules. You don't have to be on the job site for that. There's just a lot of stuff that you could do where you don't have to be boots on the ground in the field. Obviously, there is a huge role for that, and I'm a huge advocate for everybody being muddy boots in the field, right? Because there's just so much you miss if you don't. It's just an interesting thought I've had rolling around in my head is that can you segment basically half the job to a fully remote type position?
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is I feel like my company's actually kind of tried that on a project recently. So I've been supporting a job site every other week for the last 5 months, but kind of to where I was going with that earlier, I've had good support from the customer where their engineer is basically there, not alternating with me, but is also there very involved frequently as well. So that's helped, us working together with our, getting our communication and our ways of working established. We've come up with a good system between the two of us that I don't have to be there full time. But also, with that being said, we're getting into another phase of the project, a much heavier construction phase where I'm putting somebody full time out there. So, that idea of managing it remotely is a really cool idea, and I've been thinking about it for years. Honestly, I mean, our company got involved with 360 imagery, and we got an AR headset, and we started really dicking around with the stuff in the last couple of years, and just trying, like, the logistics behind it is really hard. Like, how do you get somebody that's going to be, have their responsibilities detailed out to the point that they're going to accurately manage and track the progress, for example, so that as a construction manager, you're off site, but you actually know what's happening. There's a lot of stuff that comes with that.
What do you do with your VR headset?
Yeah, really not much at the moment, to be honest with you. But with that being said, when we first got it, I was working on a site, industrial manufacturing site, of course, and I had the 3D model and I loaded it into the headset. Once I figured out how to do it, by the way, it was a challenge because the headsets a couple years ago didn't have much memory and much physical space. So I'd have to take the model and snip it up and take little chunks of it to load it. Anyways, long story short, so I did have the model loaded into, and I went out into the job site and walked the field. And I mean, there was some cool stuff. I could see where we had HVAC duct that was interfering with electrical conduit. We had another spot for HVAC duct going through the roof that had some structural steel in the way. So I mean, that kind of stuff. I mean, I've been bought in since day one. Clash detection, things like that in the field. It's invaluable if they'll pay for it. But I'm yet to see, in my opinion, the technology that proves it out for the industrial manufacturing space, at least, where it's like, yeah, this is something you gotta have. Walkthroughs are really good with it. Trainings and stuff ahead of time are really great, but like in the field, it's still kind of challenging from what I've seen.
Is what you had a fully VR, like where you can sit in your office and look at the BIM model, or is it like the augmented reality where you're walking the job site and you're overlaying the BIM model like in the field?
It's the AR. It's the HoloLens.
Okay.
1 or 2, I forget. Like it's old model. We've had it for a couple of years, but no, I've like I said, it's really cool, and I do believe in the technology. It's just to be able to do all of load the full models that happen in manufacturing and industrial with all the piping and all the equipment and all the little triangles they call them that have to load for these 3D model representations, to load millions and millions of those. Technology is just not quite there yet from what I'm seeing, but I got to move it soon. Yeah,
that was actually one of my first newsletters. It was probably one of the top 10 Construction Yeti Construction Curiosity newsletters I did. I did a demo, a live demo, recorded demo with it was Argo, and they do AR BIM modeling for that, right? They're basically the system that'll take the BIM model, put it into the AR platform, and you can, they can help you sync it in the field and do all that sort of stuff. And it was really cool. And obviously, yeah, it's if you're out in the field and you're seeing structure and you turn on every layer and you're seeing every stud, every pipe, every conduit, everything, it's almost overwhelming, right? But like as she was walking through and she's like, oh yeah, that's good for this, good for that. And some of it was, it was just kind of like just little ticklers for the superintendent where, say you're in a bathroom, right? And like you put it on and it's showing, all the handrails or what do you call them? Like the grab bars, the ADA grab bars, like in a bathroom next to like the ADA toilets. And it was like, oh yeah, there's going to be a handrail here or a grab bar. We need blocking in the wall, right? Just, we don't have the blocking, and just little things that it's not like teaching you anything, but just kind of helping you see around corners a little bit, right? Like helping you like look ahead a little bit. And so it was just kind of another, it's like any of this crap, this technology, it's just another tool in your toolbox, and it's however you really use it.
No, and like I said, I'm bought into it too. I mean, even just dicking around with it on the first time I had the model loaded in, I found conflicts and clashes. I mean, even my first time using it, I was bought into it. It's getting it to the point that I could load a whole model and go walk the entire job site on a $200 million project. Yeah, we're just not there yet. And so, and the thing is too, like just the setup for it, at least what I've used hasn't been super great. It's really hard to like set the spot in the model and then go out in the field and hit the same spots. Everything loads up correctly. It can be challenging. I'm not a pro at it either, but it can be challenging. And it's just like, until the usability is also there, it's just going to be difficult, I think.
What's your take on drones? Are you guys using those?
I haven't seen it used much. No, I mean, I've seen it used on, overall shots, like just did a 1.3 million square foot warehouse in the fall. And they did a really cool aerial view of that while it was getting built from the ground up. That kind of stuff is really cool. And I could see like some big building stuff being really, really usable. Maybe doing some surveys, things like that, but I haven't really used it a whole lot other than that. No. How about you?
Yeah, within our company, we've got few different, certified drone pilots. And sometimes, most of the time we're using them for marketing purposes, right? You're doing a flyover, right? To make a cool video for the, while the building, like they're hanging structural steel and you're flying by, right? And you get those kind of cool shots. We used them for, large property developments, right? Where you're developing 100 acres. And so you're doing a flyover to kind of, where they're building, like laying out, land development type stuff, right? And they're laying out all the roads and that sort of stuff, and, for kind of progress reports and those sort of things. We're not doing like there's this trend of people using drones for inspections. We're not necessarily doing that. It's funny. I was thinking about it like around inspections because there is, especially with roofs and stuff, right? Like people like, I just fly a drone up there and do my inspection. There's this Instagram account. Do you follow? I was trying to find it on my phone here. It's like sci-fi inspections. Have you seen him?
I don't know if I have.
Sci-fi home inspections. So this guy named Cy Porter. He's got basically like, I think he's from Arizona, and he's basically got every home builder in Arizona like after him because he does like these like detailed home inspections, right? And calls them out on everything. Well, then of course he like, he makes these videos where he doesn't call them out by name, but it's like, he's got his phone. He's doing like one of those walking, videos, right? Where he's talking to himself as he's walking by the sign, for the new development with the builder's name on it. He's like, I'm out here at this job, at this new development. And it's like, the builder's name's all plastered on the sign behind him. And so anyway, and then he just rips into him about how like you're selling $500,000 houses and you got this problem and that problem. And it's kind of entertaining, but it's like, and then now he's being sued and all kinds of stuff, right? Like death threats and everything. It's kind of taking a dark turn, but I say it all that to say, like he was doing this inspection of this roof and he had this video where it was like these slate tiles that like, kind of, the thick slate, whatever those tiles are, roof that's like slid underneath each other. And I guess somebody had done an inspection with a drone and said, yeah, all looks good. And he gets up there and like one of them was broken, but it was broken underneath the overlap. So you couldn't see the crack. And so he just like slid it out and it's like, see, it's broken. Drone will never see this. Mm-hmm. And there's just so much that you can't inspect. I mean, it's kind of managing remotely, right? Like I can manage a job site just by looking at site photos and 360 photos and drone shots and all kinds of stuff. But there's so much you'll never see either unless you're actually boots on the ground, like looking around the corner. Like, is the tile actually broken, or is it just, does it look good, from a drone or so?
Well, no, 100%. And I mean, the data that you have working remotely that supports whether you're on track or not and what you're seeing in the field, that's only as good as the person that gives it to you. At some point, there's a human that has to put something in. That's just the fact of the matter right now. Maybe that'll change someday, but at least for right now, there's a human somewhere that has to put the data in, and so it's only as good as the person that puts it in. And then, how much do you trust that person? How much you trust the data? I mean, as the CM, for example, if I'm in charge of that job and I'm trusting somebody else to tell me how it's doing, you bet your ass I got to really trust that person. I got to really trust them because I'm going to the customer and telling them something without actually knowing it myself. So it's like that's a little hairy to me.
I've had conversations with architects because, you'll have an architect who'll send out their CA guy, or they're relying on their subconsultant, right? And they're sending you a report, and I'm boots on the ground. I'm looking at it, and they're saying, yep, it's all X, Y, and Z. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, you're not even close. And I'll get on the phone, and they're just like fuming because like, oh, so-and-so told me this. And I was like, well, I can send you a picture right now. I'll show you the exact opposite. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but when you're relying on somebody, it's, and you're blindly trusting. I mean, we all, to some degree, need to trust our people, but
yep,
I guess trust but verify to some degree too.
Well, trust the people, but also, I mean, and if our team behind the scenes can find some stats, it'd be really interesting. I would love to know how much of our construction errors and how many things we find in the field that are changes are due to those kinds of things. Because I can't tell you how many projects I have. I'm going to say every single one where one of the as-built wasn't done right, or there's a building column that's in the wrong spot and now it's interfering with our conveyor belt system. I mean, every project, there's always things that were supposed to be done as part of the closeout process from a previous project that either weren't done or were done incorrectly. And every project you run into them. And I'm yet to come across one where it's just like there are no issues from a previous project. I don't know, Matt. Maybe you've seen something different.
I mean, construction is hard in general, right? Because you're creating something out of nothing, and you're getting 30, 40 different entities, across design people, owners, stakeholders, inspectors, contractors, subcontractors. You're trying to get 30-ish entities with X amount of people, hundreds of people all moving in the same direction. So construction is hard. But I tell people all the time, like, new construction is easy. You go in and try to do anything in old construction, like nothing's ever where it's supposed to be. It's, every ceiling you open up, every wall you open up, everything you touch, like elevations are different, columns are in the wrong spot. You look above a ceiling and you're like, oh, well, this isn't supposed to be here. Like, you're constantly uncovering. And I mean, basically a lot of what you're doing is a lot of renovation type work, right? So it's just, renovations are hard.
No, basically. And it also, I mean, it gets complicated so quickly because let's say a manufacturing plant, for example, the one we're working in now, let's say it's been around for 30 years at this point. Well, how many projects have gone on in that plant in 30 years to make changes and improvements? And then each time a change is made or a project, you have drawings that have to be updated. You have, different things that have to be communicated. So that's also more opportunity for the breakdowns to happen with with the actual state of the plant. And so that's what we end up finding, because each plant's got its own set of master facility drawings, which are supposed to be the ones that have everything in them. And guess what? They're not usually complete or accurate. So
we did a school a while back, and we did a lot of MEP upgrades and some suite renovations and some architectural work, like moving walls around and redesigning suites and a lot of sort of stuff. And not only did they have along the way a bunch of mini projects where we actually had paper drawings that we could go back to and look at, like, okay, well, to paint the timeline, they also had 30 or 40 years of maintenance guys just doing stuff. And so that was undocumented. So you'd go into a big room, for instance, right? You walk in there, you're like, I don't understand what's going on. And you realize, like, oh, somebody's built a wall right down the middle of this big room and made it to two small rooms. And then everything you thought is now wrong. And then you're trying to go figure out, like, well, this room is really hot. You're like, okay, well, when you subdivided the room in half, you didn't really take into the air conditioning to account. And like, one room only has, return, and one room only has supply. And like, what were you like, just constantly just trying to field engineer as you're going because nothing made any sense.
Well, and I'll even go a step further than that. So, a project right now, pet food plant. It was built 5 years ago. Major project, of course, when it was built. The contractors themselves that did the building 5 years ago don't remember what they did. I mean, stuff's in the drawings, but they've had other stuff going on in 5 years. So even the ones that physically did it themselves can't tell you exactly what happened, and it's no fault of their own. We're all human, right? And so it's just like now you take it's just so complicated when you come to projects and trying to keep all that stuff. So I don't know. Long story short, yeah, it's gonna be tough to see all those things change at a higher level. All for it, love to see it, but
it's gonna be interesting. But what's your we're in Q4 now. Are you still wrapping up 2024? Or are you looking ahead to 25?
We're looking at 25 now. We have basically our project load through the rest of the year is pretty steady. So not that we're not, of course, 100% focused on that, but we're also gearing towards looking at next year, getting things set up. We got some potential stuff coming in next year, some big stuff we know about kicking off, whether it's Q1 or Q2. So getting ramped up for that. Also, just taking a little bit of time to not ease off the gas a little bit, but give everybody a month or two to breathe. Coming into the holiday months. Stressful for everybody, families, just holidays, just being around people, and those kinds of things can be stressful. So, taking the next couple months to, recharge the batteries a bit. Actually, we were just talking about this internal company meeting, but we're really getting geared up towards 2025. So,
what's your 25 goals?
Well, we got some.
If you don't mind sharing them publicly.
Well, honestly, we haven't even had that meeting yet. But what I can tell you the first one, of course, is get more projects, get more growth, get more revenue. I mean, that's every business.
It's the name of the game.
That's every business's first, right? And we've had a good year. First year that we've hit 7 figures in revenue. So that's been great. Yeah. So hopefully grow more from there. And by the way, that doesn't mean that I'm getting 7 figures, just so everybody's aware. So anybody who doesn't run a business, don't take that to mean the wrong thing. No, so hopefully grow more from there next year. Look, get more projects, more revenue. But honestly, the key to that too is developing more relationships. So we're putting a big focus into BD now that I'm getting off sites more. Get me out there, get more clients. I'm a big proponent of not having all the eggs in one basket. So, always trying to get more clients, meet more people. Mm-hmm. That's ultimately what generates the revenue anyways. So yeah. And then of course, I shouldn't forget probably the most important piece, honestly, developing people. So we're all getting signed up for some end of the year, try to get some development things in there, self-development, whether it's classes or some certifications or even just like being involved with peer groups, staying involved with the industry, see what trends are upcoming for next year. So that's, all those things together is kind of where our head's at for this year going into next year.
What kind of classes are you looking at?
It depends. So, we're all kind of looking at our own, just depending on what our strengths and our strong suits are. For myself, probably try to get involved with maybe some peer groups or, honestly, even just learning more about business strategy and construction industry too. There's always more to learn, and even like we're talking about, even technology, it's always changing. So for me, staying up to date on the latest and greatest is super important for us to be able to plan.
There's so much changes so fast. It's a slow changing industry, but there's trends that change fast, and you got to stay on top of it. Whether it's economic trends, where are things moving, and those seem to change. The outlook and forecast changes monthly. I think, right? We were supposed to have how many rate cuts this year, and I think we finally got one. It was supposed to over and over and over, and so that's always changing. Technology is changing. I've seen a lot of really cool technology in the last few months, kind of coming up with some scheduling software I've been kind of playing with. I'll give them a shout out. Planera. If you checked out Planera as a scheduling software, they can build you a CPM schedule, but it's very collaborative. It's cloud based, where browser, you can do it on your browser. You don't need to go and basically buy a server to run P6 and all that sort of stuff. And it's built for construction, where I've never really even used P6 since college because the companies I worked for were small. We didn't, it's too complicated and, whatever. So I use a Microsoft project for the most part, and it's not built for construction, but it's collaborative. You can build templates, you can use them, you can get in there. It's got like resource planning and all kinds of really cool stuff that you can do in it. So I've been playing with that. There's this cool software. I'm trying to say, I guess it's a software called Rethink. I think the website's like rethinkplans.com. But what they do is they hook up to your email, they'll hook up to your Procore, they'll hook up to your like SharePoint, and then they digest. It's almost like a custom ChatGPT type thing, where they digest and like build their own model based on all your project information. But it's not like a ChatGPT where you go and ask it a question. Like it's not just ChatGPT is like you only get what you get out of it, right? You have to go ask it the right prompts and right questions and all that. Your email, it hooks up to your inbox, to your Outlook, and if you get an email that says, if I email you, say, hey Kyle, what's the paint color for room XYZ? And you can just say, hey, boom, task, go to Rethink, and it'll go scour Procore, it'll go scour everything, all the project data, and it'll say, I think it's, this paint color and this whatever, because it's shown here in the plans. And he was giving me a demo of it, and I was like, okay, well, what about like a task that's, not like so black and white, where it's like, okay, what's the paint color, right? It's like, hey, I need to go inspect a pre-pour concrete inspection. That's my task. And then it was very open-ended, and it went and scoured and basically built out an inspection plan for me based on the specs, based on like what the rebar spacing is supposed to be, like kind of that sort of stuff.
Size of rebar, layout, everything, right?
Dude, I was like, and obviously they're still in like beta mode, right? Like they got a long ways to go, but even then it like blew my socks off. Like this is pretty cool.
And so is this also parsing through like even PDF documents, going through drawings, because that would be like next level, where it's like, because for example, the project I'm on now, 350 electrical drawings, 27 construction bulletins, get through all that information. Like if I could throw that into a machine generator and
basically it's like you don't use Procore, do you? But like I know they hook up to at least Procore, maybe some other platforms, but basically anything you have in your Procore or your SharePoint or whatever, right? So in Procore, it reads all the drawings, because that's in the drawing module, all the specs, all the RFIs, all the submittals, all the anything you have like in the documents folder, all the everything is what it's reading.
Dang, because
there's probably still some bugs and stuff still in it today, right, that they're working out, but like I was pretty impressed with the demo, because it wasn't, he just didn't have a canned like, hold my hand and like, okay, let me show you these things that I know works. He's like, what's something you do during your job? And I was like, well, I just had to go, inspect a pre-pour for concrete, right? And so he put it in there, and I was like, oh damn, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. And you just mentioned specs. I mean, how many times are we out in the field and just doing a walkthrough and something catches our eye and you're not quite sure why? You're like, I'm pretty sure that's not right, but I need to go look up the spec. And then you spend an hour trying to go through all the specs, and you finally find it, and you're like, oh yes, yeah, I was right. And now an hour.
Or what happens, I leave myself a note, or I send myself an email to go look it up, and then your phone rings. And I finally get back to the email, and it's like a week later, and it's kind of like, it's like the time's passed or something,
It sounds super cool.
No, it's anyway, there's some cool stuff happening out there that I've been coming across. So I think it's going to be 2025 on the technology front. Maybe we've been like on the cusp of a lot of really big breakthrough stuff. And I think we might actually getting real AI in our construction technology, not just the label that everybody's been sticking on it, right?
Oh no, for sure. And it's like, I don't know. I know there's some really cool stuff I know going on with, as far as simulations and kind of like, I forget what it's called, but basically like training, working with an AI generated bot that kind of trains you on speaking. Stuff like the speaking and stuff like. Clearly, I need to freaking use this thing. But
what's the site? Because I'm gonna go get you an account.
Jeez. I can feel Alex just shaking his head behind the scenes.
Speechconstruction.com.
As far as the AI stuff, I mean, it's incredible, and I mean, we talked about it many times already. There's so much potential for it. But I mean, I haven't necessarily seen anything that's like super amazing yet, that it's aside from just like the Chat GPT stuff itself that's been groundbreaking. It's like, whoa, this is a super cool thing I didn't know you could possibly do. And, I want to see more of that stuff coming.
I think we're going to. The problem is there's just so much noise in the space, right? And it's so hard for companies that are actually doing legit stuff to break through that noise. And because they're competing with they can't really compete for Google clicks because that's owned by the big names, the big dogs that, have all the resources in the world to buy Google ads and to create content to rank spots 1 through 100 on Google, right? And so they're drowned out on Google. Yeah. They're never gonna get found there. And then so they're almost, it's word of mouth to some degree through social and that sort of stuff as they're building up. And it's just, but there's so much of that too, where I get messages all day, every day, almost on LinkedIn, just because of the content I'm putting out, right? Of like, hey, check out my new product. And 95% of them are garbage, but you don't know that because their messaging is awful. So you almost don't know what's good and what's bad until you get into it and you see a demo or you play with it and you're like, okay, well, I just wasted all this time, right? Because this is just garbage. And then you got to find those few gems. But again, it's just like a lot of wasted time almost to find it. So it's an interesting game.
No, certainly. Definitely get that. I get hit up with all kinds of AI emails, and even, you can even tell they're generated, and it'll ask me how I'm enjoying being an electrician. And I'm like, well, that was almost 10 years ago, but thanks for asking. But
I had a mechanical contractor recruiter reach out to me on LinkedIn, which I have a mechanical contracting background. It was for a PM position, which I'm totally qualified for. But it was like, hey, I saw your profile, and due to your leadership in X, Y, and Z at Alt CMO, which is our marketing company, you'd be a great fit to be this mechanical project manager. I was like, wires got crossed here, buddy.
No, it happens. And I see so many rants on LinkedIn about that stuff now too. It's gotten so bad. And then you get the good recruiters like Ted, the headhunters that are real people, and they're not just doing that bot stuff.
But they got to fight through the same noise though. There's a lot of noise created there too. And then it's like, it kind of gets a bad name for it, Yeah,
there's so much.
But if you can break through that noise, there's a huge opportunity to stand out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's where it's like, it's kind of what I'm going to say is the old school mentality for business, which is like developing relationships. And, sometimes the relationships are more important than maybe even that particular project or situation going on. I mean, hell, we just kind of went through that. We had to turn down a project, which was a really big bummer for me because it's a new client I've been developing for a couple of years, but they needed 2 resources in less than a month. And I just can't find 2 trusted people in that amount of time. It's just, I just can't do it. So,
yeah, it's those are hard to do, especially when you've been really nurturing a relationship. But at the same time, hopefully they take it as a continuing, like, in their best interest. I can't take this on because I can't fulfill you. I can't take care of you. And so I'm looking after you. It's going to hurt me more than it hurts you almost, because you can go to the next person in line. So hopefully it gets you a brownie point or 2.
No, exactly. That's the idea behind it. And, it's a case where if we weren't the only bidder on it, if we were the only ones and they needed it, we could put people on it and we could make it happen. I just couldn't guarantee that it would be done as great as I'd like to see it done. So I was like, if you have other bidders that look to be qualified for this particular job, I think it's probably best you go with them for your interests. So
it goes a long ways for people, I think.
Yeah, I think so
too. But it's always in the back of your mind though. Like when you give it up, you're like, oh man, now I just lost my spot in line. They're going to go to this next bidder. They're going to love them. And now I'm kicked out. Yep.
Now next time, who are they going to call first? Maybe them instead. So, but that's why they call it relationships, I guess. Right. But, what resiliency, Matt? What does that word mean to you?
Resiliency in today's day and age.
Yeah.
You can look at it half a dozen ways, really. You can look at it as like on the business owner side. You can look at it as kind of if talking to the audience, I'm meaning, right? You can look at it like there's been this whole, survive till 25 mantra that's been happening in the world, right? Like everyone's just trying to get through till 25. And so I guess it's, the economy, it's the election, it's the ports going on strike, it's the war, I don't know if people think 2025 is going to be the savior. But, there's been that whole mantra. So people are just trying to, just get by right now. But then, how does that play down till kind of the middle management, kind of the project manager level, even the entry level people? Being resilient, like we've been through COVID and we're kind of on the outside of that. There's been some economic struggles and inflations and all this sort of stuff, but we're nowhere near yet. And hopefully we don't get there what it was in like 2008, and I graduated college in 2010. I was class of 09, graduated in 10. And even then after the crash, like nobody was hiring. It was like hard to find work. I had a buddy who was going to graduate in 09 that took another year, got like an international business certificate, basically to play another year of rugby with us. And because he couldn't find a job, right? And so it's like we're not there yet, but things could get funny. There's a lot of funny stuff in the world right now where things could happen and happen fast. So, what would your advice to be to, like, I guess kind of an entry level or kind of middle, maybe not even a business owner, right? Because there's all these people talking about what business owners should do, but nobody's really talking about what, like, I'm gonna call them middle manager, a 5-10 year employee that's got, project manager versus like an entry level, like in this world of unknownness.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, and because I'm actually going through it as we speak on a project, is if I was coming into this next generation and I was just starting to get my feet wet and try to get some good advice, I would say to chase the experience over the money, because that's what we're seeing right now. Is we have a project that on Friday we just lost a bunch of electricians because the job went to 40 hours a week and they don't like it. They want to go elsewhere and get overtime, and can't blame them for wanting to make more money. But there's so much opportunity if you can look past what you're getting in your wallet every day, and especially for next generation too. Sometimes you don't have much control over it if your company forces you to go somewhere, of course. But and I feel like we talked about it before, maybe a little bit. Looking past the dollar amounts and the financial benefits to gain better experience, develop more relationships, and at the end of the day too, when you do that, when you stay with a customer and you provide that consistency for them and you get them to trust you, that goes a long ways for future work. So, not being so short-sighted and saying, well, this project, I'm leaving because I'm only making 40 hours a week. Well, but maybe 3 months or even a year from now, there's a job that's 60 hours a week and you're going to want to go back and they're going to say, no, we remember you. You left us high and dry. There could be some of that stuff happening in the future. And I don't know. I would just caution next generation to think more about, valuing relationships over money sometimes.
I can see that too, especially in getting some experience, like you just said, where if, quote, everyone bails to go to the next project, well, there's got to be some sort of leadership roles or some sort of, field promotions that open up, right? Like, maybe you were, kind of coming up, but you weren't quite a foreman yet. Now your foreman bounced. Well, hey, if you bounce too, you're following that guy. You're going to be stuck underneath him still, I'm sure. But hey, well, now we need a foreman, right? So you kind of get that promotion, and maybe it doesn't come with you may still be net negative on pay because if you're making $60 or 60 hours a week versus this, but a little bit of a bump, but now you're getting some more responsibility and learning and training and developing. And so there's always more to look at, than just the dollars. But I get it though. In today's economy, money's tight everywhere. And so it's, and everyone's got debt, it feels like. And so it's, it's chasing the money is all kind of becomes a necessity at some point.
No, it's become the norm, and it'll only get worse too, because as the trade shortage becomes more and more of a problem, the premiums for labor will go up and up and up, and people will be even more valuable. And so the company that really needs their project done is going to be willing to pay that extra amount. So then the customer from project A that's getting left high and dry, that could be a problem for them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's kind of the customer's issue if they can't afford to get the project done. But at the same time, it's like, you got to be looking ahead again. It's really in my mind, it's relationship based, and it's which relationship do you want more and value more. And, it could be monetary at the moment, but in the long run, it may end up actually hurting you. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we were both 25, 27 years old at one point. It's so hard to think when you're that young. It's so hard to think relationships, right? You're just worried about the money in your pocket. I mean, I had student loans and student debt. I had to make money, and like it's hard to think ahead when you're. I feel like I've matured a lot. Like after I probably hit 35, right? Like you just start thinking bigger picture, longer term type things.
No, I get it. But I mean, when I was 25, I was on site. I was home in Minneapolis maybe 4 days a month, and I was just on sites traveling the whole time, making every dollar I could,
Yeah.
I get it. I was there. But what our industry needs is a little less of that, in my opinion. So.
Yeah. And it's, with what was the stat Alex gave us? 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. A day, 10,000 retiring a day. And I believe it's, Alex, nod your head if this is true. You said it was just in the construction industry? 10,000? Yep. That's wild. And the millennials are 75% of the workforce in 2025. That's wild.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I also want to say too, I mean, kind of going full circle back to what I said earlier, work-life balance, it's a great thing. And I think everybody deserves to have that too, but it's also where I think the two could go hand in hand is work-life balance, developing a better relationship versus just chasing every dollar you can and trying to squeeze every nickel and penny you can out of companies. And I don't know. But end of rant. I'm done. I'm tired of hearing this stuff talk.
What do you think is going to happen if they really do get rid of tax on overtime pay?
Ooh. Well, nothing good. That's what I'm going to say.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, everyone's going to work as many hours as they can in the field. How many project managers are going to, want to be paid hourly if they can find a way to, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could change things a lot. I mean, it'll change project costs. It'll change project structures even too. Because you're going to have people wanting, like you're saying, the labor and the effort they want to put in is going to change. So I see a shift in roles and responsibilities happening as a result of that too.
How do you see that role?
Maybe if the project manager wants, if let's say that example, they put their foot down, they want to get paid hourly. Well, then it's probably might become a little bit less feasible to use them for as many things. So now some of that responsibility might shift downwards to the superintendent, or maybe even upwards to their manager. So maybe project management goes away then. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there, but I can imagine a big change like that. You'd see a shift in, maybe what those roles are actually doing.
It'll be interesting to see anytime you do anything I'm just saying, quote, anything. Anytime there's any big changes in the world, there's so many unforeseen trickle effects.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see kind of what how the dominoes fall from all that, if it actually happens.
Definitely.
Big if.
It's almost impossible to predict. So, but.
Well, man, I think this was a good chat.
It was
always good to, just have the two of us and we didn't follow the script, but if anybody's followed the show for more than 2 episodes, we don't follow the script. So
if we followed the script, it'd be weird. It would just be, and I think the listeners wouldn't like it. It just wouldn't be good.
So maybe the audience can let us know if they like these, just me and you, or they like the audience or the guest ones more. So just leave us a comment, hit us up on social media. Let us know what you think. Do you like these Matt Kyle ramblings, or do you like the more structured guests?
Yeah, I'm happy to switch it up too. I mean, we can start doing some other things. We can do this more often. We can, I don't know, give us ideas too. Let's change this up a bit.
We teased last year about doing some live episodes, like LinkedIn Lives. Maybe we can look at that.
Yeah, we could. Hey, if the listeners want to chime in and give us some thumbs up on that idea, we get enough of them. Sure, let's try it out.
Thumbs down, probably. So anyway.
No. Positive feedback only. That's what.
Play into the or echo. They call it echo chamber.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, man.
You gonna take us away, Kyle?
Yep, sounds great. Well, thanks again for listening to this episode of the CM Mentors podcast, and also everybody to dealing with the hurricanes down south, Helene and now Milton. I mean, hearts and prayers go out to them as well. Hopefully.
As always, buddy. Good chatting with you.
All right. See you, Matt. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.